Painfully dragging his injured leg, a desperate black bear ventures into a village seeking assistance. The events that unfold are extraordinary. "Grandma! Grandma! Rush over here!" shouted 7-year-old Noah Stedman, practically bouncing on the spot. Bev, his grandmother, was reluctant to respond to this latest urgency. The morning had been hectic, filled with thrilling discoveries. A frog, an old crushed tin from the garden, Mr. Monkley's wandering cat, and a chameleon on a tree limb. It wasn't Noah's fault that his grandmother was nearing 70 and couldn't match his energy. However, his next words made her drop her spatula. "You have to see this. There's a bear on the street." Lakeside Town, nestled in a countryside locale, bordered a few small farms and a strip of public land popular among walkers. Despite being close to a forested region, wildlife was a rare sight for the locals. In wintertime, deer would often stray into yards in search of food, but that was about it. So Noah's announcement of a bear's arrival was unusual. Beverly Stedman cleaned her hands and followed Noah through the main entrance onto the lawn-lined walkway. "Right there," Noah said, a trace of self-satisfied glee in his voice. "See? I told you. There's the bear." Fortunately, Bev had picked up her glasses while heading out. Otherwise, she wouldn't have seen the bear. "You have a remarkable vision, Noah," she complimented. "Can we get a better look?" "I want to find out what he's up to," Noah replied eagerly. "Okay," responded Bev. Being cautious would be the reasonable approach, but she was just as captivated as Noah by this extraordinary visitor to Lakeside. "But promise to stay with me, all right, Noah? This is a wild creature, and we don't know his intentions." "I suspect he's here for an important reason," Noah stated, and he was spot on. The bear had a heartbreaking motive for entering the town. Bev held Noah's hand, and hand in hand, they strolled past their home's corner and across the length of the next 3 gardens. Suddenly, Noah stopped in his tracks. "What's going on, Grandma?" he questioned. "Why is he moving so oddly?" Bev's hand flew to her mouth in astonishment. This was no ordinary stray bear. He was wounded. The creature was dragging his hind leg as though it were utterly useless. His slouched stance suggested an animal that had abandoned any elegance or vitality, presumably due to severe pain and possibly starvation. He was so desperate that he approached human habitation, seeking assistance. Watching this hopeless creature struggle triggered something in Bev, prompting her to let go of any potential concern about the bear. Observing the massive being attempt to stabilize himself with weakening forelegs that were on the verge of collapse was deeply distressing. Bev hurried towards him. Noah, trailing behind, fearfully tried to hold her back. "No, Grandma. What if the bear attacks you?" "It won't," came Bev's confident response. "Don't you understand? He's injured. We need to assist him." Then another idea popped into her head. "Hurry, go fetch Grandma's phone from the kitchen." With commendable speed, Noah sprinted back towards their house, and Bev heard the front door shut behind him. But all her focus was on the bear. The bear attempted to prop himself up momentarily, but his exhausted appendages wouldn't cooperate. With a significant crash, his body hit the ground, awkwardly falling onto his flank. His cry, brimming with agony, broke the silence before his head plopped onto the pavement. Bev feared the worst for a second, contemplating how she'd explain this regrettable situation to Noah. However, she soon realized the bear's fur-laden chest heaved. He was still breathing, still clinging to life. But for how long? Throwing caution to the wind, Bev approached the enormous beast lying lifelessly in the road for a closer look. Though she had no formal training in veterinary care, she had spent her childhood surrounded by animals on a dairy farm, and she trusted her keen eye for these matters. She was almost near the injured bear when a new issue arose. The serene lanes of Lakeside were abruptly thrown into chaos as a delivery truck turned into the street, speeding towards the bear. Unless Bev acted fast, this situation would turn from grim to horrific. "Grandma! Grandma! Beware!" Noah panted from behind her. Bev amplified her voice, flailing her arms. "Halt! Halt! Halt!" An alarming thought echoed in her mind. "We'll all meet our end in this manner." But then, mere feet from meeting the bear, the delivery van came to a sudden halt. The driver stepped out, surprised. "Wow," he exclaimed. "I almost ran it over. Thanks for stopping me. Do you know what happened to it?" Noah's young eyes widened in shock. "Is he gone, Grandma? Did he pass away?" "No," Bev reassured him. He's still with us. Can we help him then? Noah asked hopefully. I hope so, Bev replied, daring the delivery man to oppose her. Instead, he offered a useful workaround. I'm headed toward Walcott Street, he said. My delivery destination isn't far from the police station, just across the road. I'll inform the sheriff to send someone here. Bev had initially planned to dial 911 for help, but quickly shifted gears and dialed another contact from the phone Noah handed her. She quickly explained the situation after getting a response. The recipient of the call had a hard time believing the unexpected tale. Dr. Thomas Moore, a small-town veterinary practitioner, usually dealt with routine checkups and common illnesses, such as eczema, elderly dogs suffering from joint diseases, neutering pets, and occasional emergency calls for horses grappling with digestive disorders. His experiences over 20 years instilled confidence in his skills, but today's call would push him to face the most daunting challenge of his career. Strangely enough, he had anticipated a call like this and had been preparing for it. A regular client who managed a horse riding barn had called earlier about sighting an injured bear just off their usual riding path. Dr. Moore contacted a friend who occasionally volunteered at an animal sanctuary, and they agreed to investigate the reported spot. Sadly, the bear was nowhere in sight when they arrived. They searched thoroughly but found no sign of the bear and concluded it must have been a mistake. However, talk of the injured bear continued to spread. Witnesses claimed the bear was struggling to walk, dragging one of its limbs. Seemingly just a ghost or perhaps trying to blend into the background due to its fragile state, Dr. Thomas Moore eventually confirmed the bear's whereabouts. But the information suggested that the bear was now so feeble that it couldn't maintain an upright position. As he packed his paraphernalia and some tranquilizing agents, Dr. Moore contemplated how ill-equipped he was for the challenging situation ahead. While Bev Stedman and her grandson Noah awaited assistance, additional neighbors joined them in watching over the weakening bear. One person even positioned his vehicle across the roadway to ward off traffic. An elderly, cranky man, known as Old Frank, announced, "This is a death watch. The poor creature is drawing its last breaths." However, no one else was willing to acknowledge that he might be accurately assessing the situation. Bev tightened her hold on little Noah's hand, hoping the bear's faint breaths would continue. Then, as they all observed, an incident sparked fresh hope for the bear's survival. Darlene Marlton, a lady residing across from Bev, brought over a container of honey and drizzled some into the bear's mouth. The bear savored the honey and then opened its eyes in astonishment. He glanced at the group encircling him protectively before savoring the taste again. Darlene offered the bear more honey, and it seemed to regain some life. With a groan, the bear managed to lift its head, and his two unhurt paws swayed ineffectively in an attempt to straighten himself. A man called Bill suggested they needed to prop him up. Strong objections echoed immediately, stressing the necessity for the bear to stay immobile. But before a consensus could be reached, a newcomer took control of the situation. It did not surprise Bev when she spotted Sheriff Pat Walton exiting his patrol car. He was known for his proactive approach. However, he wasn't alone. Following closely behind was Dr. Thomas Moore, the most veteran vet in the community. While many community members remained at the location, Dr. Moore was acutely aware of their watchful eyes as he prepared a tranquilizer. He encountered his first obstacle here. Normally, he would weigh the animal to calculate an accurate dosage. But with the bear, this was impossible, forcing him to devise a new procedure. Dr. Moore had come across research indicating that one could gauge an animal's weight by measuring its chest circumference. His eyes scanned the audience until they landed on Jeff Monkley, an avid woodworking fan. Dr. Moore pulled Monkley aside and explained his need. Understanding, Monkley dashed off and returned shortly with a measuring tape. With a relieved breath, Dr. Moore took the tool and proceeded to examine the bear. Although his dosage administration was a rough calculation, he adjusted it for the bear's depleted condition. Once the black bear was sedated, Dr. Moore could conduct a thorough assessment of its injuries. He observed that the bear had endured breaks in 2 places, and its journey towards Lakeside had worsened the injuries. Moreover, the bear's other limbs had also suffered due to its provisional disability, and there was a serious infected wound. Handling the animal's injuries was just a fraction of the challenge Dr. Moore faced in its care. His primary aim was to transport the animal into surgery. But how could he move such a large creature? Sheriff Pat Walton didn't see this as an obstacle. He suggested a horse trailer. Dr. Moore, having connections with some housekeepers who were indebted to him, acquired the required trailer within 30 minutes. Then came the challenge of relocating the bear, a hefty adult male. The removal from the road would call for a collective effort. Dr. Moore and some observers managed to shift the bear onto a canvas sheet. In a synchronized lift, they deposited the bear softly on a bed of straw, completely oblivious to the commotion due to the sedative. Suddenly, a wave of applause broke through the bystanders. Noah led the ovation, and a sense of relief spread among the crowd. They had performed a rare and brave act, and it took a young boy to appreciate it. Some spectators accompanied Dr. Moore and Sheriff Walton back to the surgery. There, Dr. Moore allocated a part of his garden to create a specialized enclosure for the bear. He began to clean the bear's wound, stitch it up, and set its broken limb. Later that day, the bear awoke, exhibiting a grumpy disposition. However, Dr. Moore viewed this as a positive sign, indicating that the treatment had been effective. The bear was certainly on its path to recovery. The following week, the bear was housed in a distinct section at Dr. Thomas Moore's veterinary facility to convalesce. It became the recipient of an unexpectedly generous number of visitors and well-wishers. Within 7 days, the bear had transformed into a figurative emblem for the community, a symbol of optimism and tenacity. The recovering black bear exhibited increased activity and was subsequently relocated to a wildlife refuge. Fast forward 3 months, and the bear had made a full recovery, earning a well-deserved liberation back into its natural habitat. The bear was fortunate to have found itself in the company of such compassionate individuals. Have you had wild creatures seek assistance from you? Do share your stories in the comments. We look forward to hearing from you.